Welcome to TEPSA Talk, the podcast where leaders inspire, share, and grow together. TEPSA is dedicated to celebrating the incredible work happening in education. Each episode, we dive into meaningful conversations with leaders, change-makers, and innovators who are shaping the future of our schools. Whether you're looking for fresh ideas, encouragement, or a little spark to fuel your passion, TEPSA Talk is here for you. Imagine tuning in to hear how leaders are revolutionizing their schools, tackling challenges head-on, and fostering a culture of collaboration. Grab a coffee, hit play, and let's grow together. Welcome to TEPSA Talk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TEPSA Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Nesloney, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. We are thrilled to bring you different thought leaders from around the world every week, and I have one of my personal favorites on today. I cannot wait for you all to learn from him, and that is the one, the only, Joe Sanfelippo. Joe, thanks for being here. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Well, I'm so excited to be here too, Todd. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And boy, I don't know about me. I taught elementary school. I taught kindergarten, second grade, fifth grade. I coached at the high school. I was a school counselor at the elementary level. And then I was an elementary principal for 8 years and a superintendent for 12. So that's kind of how the whole system rolled out over time, and had a wonderful time doing it. Elementary principal was the best job. It was such a great job. When you find the right spot and the right people to do it with, you put yourself in a really good situation. So very thankful to have had that opportunity in Fall Creek, Wisconsin, home of the Crickets, and love doing all the things that we can to help people move forward. So just an honor to be here.
Okay, Joe, I gotta say, I've known you for years and connected with you so much. I never knew you were a kindergarten teacher. Like, that's mind-blowing to me. I can see, like, those kids being obsessed with you and your energy. But I'd love to just dive into that a little bit. When did you know, like, education was in your path at all?
Well, I think two things. And let's pump the brakes on the kindergarten teacher, because I did it for a year and then that was it. All right. So like these kids, and Todd, it was half day. All right.
Oh.
So, and it was like, like we got the kids in, did the calendar, got a snack, went outside, did a special, and it was done. And even that was like, holy cow, what is going on? These kids there's more energy than I would have anticipated. I love it, but I love being part of it. And anyway, so I think the thing that really kind of started my whole trajectory to get into this, into the industry, was I just love being around kids. I love being around kids. When I was in high school, I used to do a lot of camps, for a lot of basketball camps, and I just love being around kids. And I had a coach that once said to me, I was doing a camp, I was doing a drill for all these little kids at camp, and after the drill got done, he just came up to me, and he stopped everything. He just said, "This, like, you need to really think about doing this." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that." He goes, "No, here's the thing, the kids loved it, but I haven't seen you smile like that in a long time." So it was like, that was the kind of stuff that I think I needed, just a little push to say, yeah, when people see you happy doing the things that you're doing and they reinforce that, it gives you a better opportunity.
I love that. Well, Joe, obviously our audience is primarily school and district administrators, and there's so many levels and layers to that. But along the way, at some point, you had to realize, you know what, this school leadership thing or this district leadership thing might also be something I'm interested in, I'm good at, I enjoy. When did you kind of feel that longing or that pull to step into an administrative type role?
Well, I think that there's two ways. Like, so the principal thing happened because I like leading more people, and I was having a good time leading more people. And then I was a counselor, and then I was like a department, chair, and just kind of doing that whole thing. And then I thought this might be fun to do on another level. And I got into it, and I got my degree, and then I thought, well, I'm going to, just apply for a job in a different part of the state that I knew my wife wanted to get back to at some point. And it ended up, I just kind of got on a great run with interviews, and it just worked out. And I was not ready for a principal job, but at the same time, they gave you the keys and said, go do it. And like, when you're 29 doing that, you're like, man alive, that's probably not the best situation. But I loved it. And then when I moved to Fall Creek, there was the superintendent that was here. His name's Jim Kling, and he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. And he said to me, you can be a principal. I'm going to leave in a couple of years. I'll leave in 3 years. And if you want to be a superintendent, this might be a good place for you to do that. And after 6 months, he came into my office and he said, hey, so I'm going to leave. Like, you gonna do what? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna leave. You're ready. You're ready. You can do this. It's fine. It's gonna be great. They love you. I'm like you're gonna leave? Like you're gonna be gone now? Like gone? And he's like, yeah, you're gonna be fine. I'm like, what? So I kind of got thrown into it, but it was the best thing that happened to me because I didn't know what I didn't know, and I felt like I stayed as connected as I possibly could to the people that were doing the work. And I think that's all you can do in that spot. And you learn it together. And I had a community that was willing to let me learn on the job. And that's really special. It doesn't happen all over the place.
I love that. And so, you spent years in that position. And one of the things that I think you were really well known for is your ability to really advertise the great things happening with where you are. Your little Fall Creek, Wisconsin is known worldwide for the crickets and everything like that because you really put an effort into, you even got it on now. You just put such an effort into making sure that people heard the message, shared the message, were a part of the vision. Talk to me a little bit about what that was like and when that became something that you were like, you know what, this is something we need to be putting some effort into so people can see the great stuff happening here.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of started with my interview actually as superintendent. I asked the board in my interview. I said, how am I going to know if I'm any good at this? Like, what are the metrics? How am I going to know? And one of the board members raised her hand and she said, we've got a lot of really great things happening here, but nobody knows about them. And I said to her and the whole group, I'm not the best superintendent that you're going to hire. I can promise you that. But I can also promise you I'm the loudest person on earth. So if there are great things going on here, I promise you people are going to know about them. And I literally just took that mindset and helped. I wanted to so I got to the point where I wanted people to feel the way that I felt when I talked about them. That's what I wanted. And so the more that I could do that, then we could help out with the process in terms of what it went like. And for me, doing that gave me some momentum to kind of do other things that built our community up to the point that, people wanted to come and, our open enrollment went up and we got more people applying for jobs and the whole thing. And I think a lot of it just had to do with the idea that people knew what we were doing. And that helped the process a lot.
And I love that you shared that because there's so many positive benefits that come from advertising the great things that's going on in your district, at your school, whatever it may be. But if we have administrators listening today who are like, that's awesome. Like, I love what you did. But Joe, you were doing like this and this and this and this. Like, I don't even know where to start with talking about us and what we're doing and doing it in the right way. What would be like your first step for people to consider when sharing the good things and beginning to brand themselves as a school or a district?
Well, that's easy. So that the thing is, like, we didn't know where we were going either, but we just started extending stories. So we talked a lot about recognize, acknowledge, extend, putting yourself in the right mindset to recognize the fact that great things happen around you all the time. And if you are willing to see them as opposed to walk past them to get to the next thing that has to get done, you're going to find more joy in your work. All right. The second thing we did was acknowledge to the person that was doing the great things that they were doing the great things. Now, all of a sudden, you've created some momentum for two people in that moment. But when people started doing the third thing, when they started extending the conversation to people in the building that didn't see the great things that were happening in the other part of the building, now all of a sudden we created this culture where everybody wanted to be part of the conversation. And then we started doing the outside stuff. Because if you start doing the outside stuff first, you say, this is the greatest place, it's the greatest place, it's the greatest place. And then inside they're like, is it the greatest place? Are you sure it's the greatest place? Then it's a different conversation. So you start inside out. And when you recognize, acknowledge, extend with the people in your building to start, now you can start talking about it after. So I started extending one story a day. So I'd find something and then I would extend the story to somebody outside of school that didn't see the great things happening. If it was a parent, if it was a spouse of a colleague, if it was a parent of a colleague, if it was a child of a colleague, like something that I knew that when they were going to go home, they were going to have the conversation about what their adult in the building was doing or their child in the building was doing. And then and to be really honest, I just felt great doing it. So I just kept doing it. And it was kind of self-serving, to be really honest, because there wasn't a lot of joy in the superintendent job to start. So that was the one thing that kind of where I found the joy in terms of what we were doing.
And I love that you shared, there's two things that you shared that I really, really liked. I love the recognize, acknowledge, extend. I thought that's so cool to have that kind of mindset. But I also like how you talk about how it's a bucket filler for you. And I think that sometimes we forget. It can feel like initially when we're thinking about it or planning, like, okay, it's one more thing I have to remember to do or get right or anything like that. But once you feel what it's like to recognize someone, to acknowledge them, to spread that on to even further, you're like, okay, I'm addicted. Like, we got to share more of this because it just uplifts all. So I love that you shared that.
So we're talking
Okay.
about recognize, acknowledge, extend.
Yes. Okay.
And yeah, and I think the one thing that I think has been really helpful for us along the way is, like, I think a lot of times the principal, the administrator in the space feels like it's incumbent upon them to be the only storyteller in the building. And I told her, I said, like, if you want me to walk past and tell you that you're good at your job every day, like, I can do that if you want, but that means I'm doing it for everybody. So what if we created a culture where you were willing to do the same thing for the person that teaches next to you? And so when they started extending stories to each other, then we just won. Then it was just like, now we're just like trying to, get as much stuff out there as we possibly can, to the point that I'm sure that it was a little annoying for other school districts in our area. And I didn't even care. I didn't care at all.
That's right. I love it. Well, Joe, you've also got a book out now called Lead from Where You Are. Tell me a little bit about where that book came from and kind of the inspiration behind it.
I'll tell you, that book to me is everything I believe about leadership and culture and storytelling and everything that goes along with it. It takes the ideas from Dan Heath's Power of Moments and the leverage points of all these stories, and really puts it in a practical framework for people that can hopefully help them along the way. Because we're in charge of taking care of the adults who are taking care of the kids. Well, who's in charge of taking care of the adults who are taking care of the adults who are taking care of the kids? And a lot of times you feel isolated and alone in a job that's isolating and lonely. So can we give a little bit of help, a little bit of framework in a way that's not too philosophical? I'm not a philosophy guy at all. At the same time, I want to make sure that you walk out, feeling better than when you walked in. And the stuff that we did in Lead from Where You Are was really about finding purpose literally in 30-second moments. And that was super fun to me, because I think I was at a point where I liked my job. I liked it a lot. And we were doing a lot of stuff, but I didn't really know what we were doing until I started writing it down. And when I started writing it down, it really, really changed, because I got up in the morning excited to write. There was purpose that went along with it. And that felt really, really good to me. So my hope is that when people lead with intention, connection, and direction, then they feel better about the work, and the people that they're working with feel better about the stuff that they're doing as well.
One other thing that I want to ask you about before we begin to wrap up is, I absolutely loved your walks to school every morning. And you started recording those, and it was like your little leadership thought every day, or just life thought. And it was such an inspiring, powerful thing that I think really affected so many people who were following you on social media. Where was that idea born from? And did it ever feel like, what am I going to talk about today, when you were doing it like every day?
All right. So if we're going to pull back the curtain on this thing, essentially what happened, I am super loud. Like, that's what it is. And in the morning, I wake up before everybody else, and I'm super loud. And I live across the street from school. So I can either be super loud in my house and wake people up, or I can walk across the street, be super loud at school, and just get something done. And I started walking to work on Saturday mornings. And then I started thinking about leadership, and I do a little journaling and stuff when I got to work, just about things that I was thinking about. And I thought, well, I just started recording them on the way there. And the first couple were, a lot of them are horrible, but they just, nobody was watching them. And so I was kind of doing it for myself as a reminder. And then people started to like them, and that was pretty cool. But the thing about all of those walks, Todd, that I think is really important for people to know is that 95% of the walks, there's 100 of, now there's probably 120, but at the time that I stopped doing them, just because I wasn't walking across the street to school anymore, 95% of those walks are things that I screwed up. And I just wanted to help people not screw them up. I did so many things I really wish I would have done differently as a leader. And I think, if I would have known what I know now when I started, the experience would have been different leading up to it. I think everything happens for a reason, of course, but at the same time, I may not have had to go through as many struggles to get there. But that's kind of the way they worked. I still love doing them. I'm still going to do them. I took a year off on them because I didn't want people to think that I was actually walking to work every day. That wasn't fair to the people that were actually doing the work. So I didn't want that out there. But now I'll walk in the woods, or I'll walk, to work around the block, or before I saw you right before our session at United, where I'm like, now I guess I'm walking to work to do a session. But whatever we can do to help people is what we're going to do, and it's been super fun to do.
I love that, Joe. Well, as we wrap this up, the last question I always love to ask the guests that we have on this podcast is, if there was one thing that you wanted to make sure that people heard today, whether you've said it already or not, and you just want to make sure, you know what, before you guys leave this conversation, I need you to hear me say this. What is your one thing for our listeners?
The one thing is being able to recognize, acknowledge, and extend completely changed the way that I lead. And it made me happier, and it made people around me happier. And I think one of the things that we've talked about when it comes down to the branding, when it comes down to telling stories of school, is that when people don't know what you do, they make up what you do. And I think a lot of times people think that's an outside in thing, and it's not. It's an inside out thing too. When they don't know what you do as the leader in your space, they tend to make up what you do as the leader in your space. So when we can, if that's my thing, if my thing is to recognize greatness, acknowledge greatness, and extend greatness, people are more comfortable with me because they know that that's who I am and what I'm about, and at the core of how I lead. So when you come up with your core values, and you can live through those, recognize, acknowledge, extend, not only do you feel better about leading, but you make other people feel better about what they're doing, whatever it is that they're doing in the context of the building.
I love that. Well, Joe, if people want to connect with you or learn more about you, or bring you in to work with them or their team, how can they connect?
I would just find me on the socials, Joe_Sanfelippo, and all of them, call me, 715-577-6623, man. That's my number. You call me, text me, whatever you want. Like, we're here for anything that we can do to help. I love figuring out ways that we can help people along the way. And it's been super fun to do, and beyond humbling, to be honest. But at the same time, don't ever hesitate to reach out and call or text. Like, I'm just a dude, and now I'm a dude in South Carolina. Used to be a dude in Fall Creek. Now I'm a dude in South Carolina, trying to not sweat 9 pounds off in this interview, but at the same time, trying to help people as much as we can.
I love it. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being a guest today. And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of the TEPSA Talk Podcast. You can check out any of our previous episodes on wherever you catch your podcast, or on YouTube today. We hope you join us again next week for another all-new episode.